me to put a warning flag on the bad
Yeah,
one?
you can, put a danger sticker on it or whatever.
Skull and crossbones or something?
Moving on to item number 15, investment in tax certificates.
As we've done in the past, we're planning to participate in the bidding process for tax certificates, and as you can see on the second page on this agenda item, that as it is right now, there are 3 developers that are intentionally planned that have not paid their tax bill yet, and it appears reasonable that some, if not all of them, will be available at the tax certificate sale beginning in May. And so this is our pre-planning to set that up so that John could actually bid during that time frame, and in fact, those that are awarded can be purchased by the OUA, consistent with what we have done in the past to protect our interest, a strategic interest in those in the assessments that we have that are within the tax bill.
As a bit of background, because I know we have a lot of new folks on the board. Several years ago, the OUA entered into what we call the 10-20 developer agreements, with some proposed developments of 10-20, implying that there were 10% down, 10%, and then a series of 20% payments on their developer agreement for the services that they were purchasing. A number of our developers, and those fees were attached to the tax bill for the property taxes. They were special assessment. On those developers that have not paid their assessments for the year in association with their tax bill, a number of years ago, the OUA elected to go out and bid on those tax certificates that have a 10-20 developer assessment on it, and try to win those bids through the public auction process to protect our interest in these assessments that were out there. We have done this for a number of years, and this is the last year that we expect to have assessments on many of these properties, and we're seeking board authorization to follow that up with the purchasing or bidding on these certificates coming up in 2 months.
I make a motion that we go ahead and continue as we've done in the past 2 months. Bid the 3 parcels, or bid on the 3 parcels.
I have a motion.
I believe it's more than 3 parcels, but it's
Or
three different developers.
2 developers, 3 developer agreements.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussions?
Where is Freshwater?
That's one on Charlie Harvey.
Okay, that's Tucker property?
Yes, sir.
What about Awesome Ranch?
It's down behind Ancient Oaks on 441 Southeast. Which is past Kings Bay. Go past Kings Bay.
Another slough, it's that another
Yeah.
slough.
Slough, okay. All right, that's all I wanted.
Also, right?
Actually, Awesome has the most parcels, right?
Adventures.
Just keep in mind for Land Ventures, we are going through the appeal process with them right now. Tom will give us an update on those legal proceedings.
Awesome Ranch has been good about paying theirs.
Yeah, and there's still time that some of these may actually step up to the plate and pay before the tax certificates are put out.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 16, annual audit report update.
Mr. Chairman, our expectation is that we're going to be getting a final version of the audit report within the next couple of days, in the next week. The holdup appears to be that they're waiting for an evaluation of the actuarial report that is coming from the actuarial report for the pension plan, since a couple of the notes in the financial statement relate to our pension plan, and that seems to be necessary for them to review that actual report before they would release the final audit report. But it is our intention that as soon as we get that report, we will be sending it out to each of the board members in electronic version if they choose, or a hard copy that we can provide, so that there will be ample time to review it and to dissect it before the next meeting, where we expect that there will be the formal presentation by the auditors before the board. So this is more of an informational item at best.
Going back to the consent agenda, items that were pulled. Item number 5, finance report.
I just had a couple questions there, Basil. And of course, going looking through it, some of the question was spurred by this Pine Ridge project and the substation repair out there that we just let the work on. But, we know our revenues are off, but our operating expenses are also down. So you're showing a net, or, well, a positive, what you call it, financial situation. But in that, have you factored in yet the substation replacement, the tank out there?
As far as the cost of
Yeah.
that improvement, well, that's a capital project, and that does not show in the regular operating.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. So that repair is in a capital expense?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. I watch,
And at some point when that is completed, depreciation obviously will be something that will be changed. But at this point here, it's not going to affect the results that we're showing here so far.
well, when we did that, I just wasn't sure how you were gonna book that expense, if it was actually a capital expenditure, or was it something, a repair type? Okay, that's what that was. Okay, and, I just, how come, or what did we over project on our operating expenses? But you didn't really show how. But I mean, it was it anything in particular that we over projected on or budgeted for operating expenses?
On page 2, in the middle under operating expenses, it shows the various variances by department.
Right.
And all of them are positive at this point here. You know, part of that has to do with that when we're looking at our expenditures, they're not necessarily ratable through the year. That we, as we mentioned, kind of a note to the financial statement, that whenever possible, we may defer some expenses till later in the year to determine, see how the year is shaping up, or whether it's something that we should do. Normal fixed operating expenses are not going to really create much of that variance, positive or negative, because those are going to be pretty ratable through the year. Power, fuel, things of that nature. Chemicals, those are always going to be reasonably ratable through the year, depending on our consumption of in production of water or the processing of sewage. So to answer it, there's probably not one thing that I can tell you unless we go into the specific
I was
great
just wondering,
detail.
was there something in particular that, I mean, I looked through there, 2% and 3% or whatever here and there. And I didn't know if there was something that skewed those numbers or weighed more than the others. And you're saying, no, that it's just a sum total of all of it created there. Plus, some expenses haven't been deferred till later on, so at this period of time, they're just not, we haven't spent them, so it's not showing yet. So,
If I can add a little bit into that, there may be a few things that are skewing the first part of the year because there are some expenses that we have to pay up front for the entire year, let's say for insurance purposes. There could be other things because the first part of the year is associated with the holidays that we didn't purchase or do during that kind of time period. But the other thing that might still be a factor here in play, and we don't really know yet, if you remember, we are near the end of a trial period of 4 10-hour days versus 5 days.
yeah.
And certainly, we're not sure how that might impact an expense such as labor. And so that could be having an impact on it also. We just,
Electric bill, fuel, everything, I mean, it all comes to play.
we're still so early on in our budget year that there could be some great fluctuations either way this part.
I was just wondering, because it's gonna be, soon it's gonna be budget, we're gonna start talking budget, and that'll always be a little stickler in there. And I was just wondering if some of those expenses been deferred until later on in the year, or is it something that actually is a surplus, that maybe we over budgeted for some items, or any particular thing, anything in particular. But it's just a combination of all of it, and like I said, some things have been deferred till later in the year, so therefore we haven't spent them, although they are budgeted and will be spent. And if that answers it.
The short answer is we don't have a specific item we can point to and say
Right, okay.
this is an over expense or an under.
Right. You need a motion to, go ahead and accept the finance report or appoint the board from the agenda.
Yes.
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Clay. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And item number 10, surplus items.
The only thing that I I wanted to ask on the surplus items, and I had made a note, but, is that policy? Is that the way we do that, like to get rid of surplus equipment or whatever? I mean, is there a policy that we deal with that?
In what sense?
Just like remember when we had the trucks and the equipment, we talked about selling here, several months ago?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a policy in place that we sell surplus equipment?
There is a policy that if it is serviceable and we can declare it as surplus,
Right.
then we do sell it, usually through a public auction, govdeals.com.
Right.
Is where we normally place the material. If it, if there's some material work to it, obviously if it's a shitter, that shot, that just gets serviced and we don't go through the chance of trying to sell it.
Okay.
These do have some value.
Right.
Whether the value is to take it out to a recycle center and recover the metals, which we do with some of our things like old feeders and things of that nature,
Right.
we do, or we collect metal through different projects and get sent to a recycle center.
Right.
This may have some material worth to somebody else, it's more than what the metal is worth, so we thought we would put a few of these filters out there for sale. If they do have a value to somebody more than the metal, we would much rather sell it to them for that use, whatever they want to do, whether they want their own filtration, or they want to make an extremely large cooker, or whatever they want to do with it.
Right.
Otherwise, if the bid price comes out to what the metal's worth, we'll just take it out to recycle.
Right. Well, the only reason I was asking is because like when we were dealing with some trucks a while back and some other equipment that we were replacing, I just was wondering what the process was. Why do you ask to have that brought before the board? I guess that was my question.
Because there can be some value to it, we wanted the board to declare it as surplus. Two of these are brand new, so.
They look like they're brand new.
Two are new.
Yeah.
We've replaced them with another ag filter that we're using as opposed to these.
Right.
So these were like a backup when these other ones started blowing apart.
Right.
We've gone to a new style of filter that's much more efficient and easier to operate. So we're just bringing these, if there is some material value to these, we estimate what the resale value is, the metal?
It's about $208 for the used one, just in metal price, and stainless price, 55 cents a pound.
Yeah.
They weigh about 400 pounds.
That was, I was just wondering how you determine which goes to surplus and which goes. Because to me, the one looks like the legs are bent, it's falling apart. It's probably got holes in it or busted somehow, but the other two look brand new, so I'm
The
sitting there.
two bottom ones are brand new, the one on the top is, it's typical of the other ones. It's been welded several times, I mean, it was just, there were some design flaws in these older
But
things.
you do have a process by which, you know, there's a policy in place.
Again, if there is some material value to it, it's better to declare it as surplus by board action than us just taking it out and doing it.
That's all I was asking. Make a motion, we go ahead and, allow the administrator to sell those items as surplus.
Second.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 17, items from the attorney.
Mr. Chairman, there are three items I would like to point out to you. One, bringing you up to date on the Land Ventures lawsuit. We've heard nothing further on the appeal. I'm sure the time's getting close for the appellant to file his initial brief. Hasn't happened yet. I don't know what the time constraints are on that. I will tell you that we obtained a judgment for attorney's fees and costs in the amount of $191,000 some odd dollars. One of the items that you approved payment of was an attorney named Robert Gorman, who testified in that hearing on behalf of Mr. Melville, supporting his fees and his hours and his charges and those kind of things. He did a very good job. He had to do a lot of homework in order to present that testimony. I observed it and I was impressed with the way he presented it. I think the judge was impressed also. We got the judgment. The judge entered a supplemental judgment, is what it's called, in the amount of $191,000, roughly $500. I obtained a certified copy of that judgment and recorded it in the public records, which puts a lien on the title to the property. Mr. Miller and I discussed the possibility of executing on that judgment, which would force a sale of the property. The problem is, our judgment stands behind the mortgage that's on the property. Our assessments and our tax certificates are ahead of that mortgage. So I suggested to Mr. Miller, we not do anything as far as execution on that. As soon as we're able, we will come back to recommending to you all that we apply for a tax deed and see what occurs when that happens. But in the meantime, I would suggest we take no action. Let's see what the appeal process turns out to be. And I think it's gonna be favorable. Secondly, to bring you up to date on the Cemetery Road property. We're still in the dark. Since the last meeting, I have had a conversation with my regular contact with the DEP. And they're wanting to know, what is our attitude on this? She was asking me, what is the attitude of the OUA? And I brought her up to date on the conversations that I had with a superior of hers. First, she wanted to know, had I ever gotten a response from the governor's office on the letter I sent to the governor? And the short answer is, we've never gotten a response in writing from the governor's office or any other kind of contact from the governor's office. Now, I brought her up to date on the fact that her superior was inquiring about the possibility of us paying interest on that mortgage. The fact that there would be a reservation of the minimum interest, which we already knew about. The state can't sell property without that reservation in there. And the reimposition of the restriction on the property that it had to be used for public use until the mortgage was paid off, and at that time the restriction would go away. If there was going to be an amendment to the contract, it needs to come from them to us. We signed, we approved the original contract, we sent it up there to them. The state is still sitting on the full deposit. We need to get it resolved, quite honestly. She said, well, is your attitude at this point, take it or leave it? I said, well, either they need to send us a revised contract or just call the whole deal off. There's no point in us sitting here wasting more time on this. I'm not sure what their attitude is. I don't understand where the resistance would be up there. She's telling me she doesn't feel like it's coming from the governor's office. Somebody needs to either fish or cut bait, in short. I would like to either get it resolved or let's stop talking about it. We don't need to be sitting here with our money sitting up there in somebody else's coffers. It's not doing us a bit of good, it's not doing him any good either. That needs to be resolved. I would like to see that resolved, and I'm more than willing to do whatever the board wants me to do on that. Do I go back and tell them, we're tired of waiting on you? Or give them a deadline to come back and give us a response, accept our contract, or give us a revised contract and do it within X number of days? Or do we sit and do nothing? I mean, this started in 2006.
What do you think would be the best way to go?
Give him a deadline, Tony.
I don't,
Give him a deadline, with either accept it or modify it.
Yeah, we'd like some kind of, I'd
But
say.
give us an answer.
It might make sense to give us something. We've been sitting here now since late last year, I'm thinking, sometime last year, with our proposal, accepting the contract that they sent to us. We approved it, we signed it, we sent the additional deposit up there to them, and it's sat there. I mean, it's been this way ever since. Do we have better use for the money here, or do we sit and gamble that they're gonna do a deal with us?